Welcome to Owner Insights, the podcast that uncovers stories about businesses and their owners. I'm James Orchard, Managing Director of the Crew Harris Orchard. In each episode, I sit down with a business owner to hear their stories. We discuss things like why they started their business, what was their motivation, the mistakes they've made, the lessons they've learned, keys to growth, and what they do differently. These aren't how-to guides or do-as-I-say tips, just real conversations between two business people. Join us as we explore what it takes to become a truly great business. Welcome to Owner Insights, Scott Salisbury.
Thanks, James. Pleasure to be here.
Scott Salisbury is a very well-known name for a couple of reasons. Not only have you developed a very successful and significant business, but you're also a footballer back in the 80s. Yeah. Yes, I remember it well because I was growing up in that era, and it was a golden era for the Glenelg Football Club. And I want to talk about that and the influence that had on your business life. But before we get there, can we just talk about your childhood and the influences of your childhood, where you grew up, siblings, parents, those types of things?
Yeah, sure. I was one of three kids for my mother Marion and my father Jim, and the first home that I can remember that we were in was at Brighton, Balmoral Avenue, opposite the Brighton High School. It had vineyards all around us back in those days.
Wow.
My dad was a carpenter and moved into another industry, boat building. And back in those days, all boats were made from plywood, not fiberglass. And that was probably the start of my introduction into a trade and working with your hands. Mm. I've got to say though, back in those days, it was you had to make your own toys and make your own fun, so it was a little bit different. Didn't have any iPhones or iPads to play with. So that was really the beginning of it. My sister was a couple of years older and my brother was a year younger than me, so it was the two of us just went a bit rampant, really.
So carpentry and boats, two themes that have continued through your life, is that fair to say?
That's right. Certainly boats, from a certain point of view, Dad was never really into boating. He actually built them, but was never really into boating. He built us a caravan, so I remember that in the early days, and helping him with with the saws and hammers and planes and all the tools that he had in his shed. And that's once we moved to Marion, near the Marion Shopping Centre. And Dad would have a boat in his shed that he was working on, and he cut a hole in the front door of the shed so the bow of the boat could stick out so he could fit it in the shed. So it was a great time, great childhood. My brother and myself would go into Sturt Creek and catch lizards and frogs and bring them home and make cages for them. And
So that upbringing, was that the start of your interest in building?
I think so. I was very practical, so I was good with my hands. My brother was hopeless. And we had bikes and things, so we changed the bikes and we extended the front forks of the bikes and made them a bit weird and wonderful. And I was quite good with my hands and changing tyres and wheels and things like that. So at school I wasn't great at school. I was pretty good with maths, but English I was terrible. So and that still continues on today. So subconsciously or consciously you thought career-wise you're going to go into something like building or something more practical than academic? Not really. When I finished high school, even before I finished high school, I applied for a job as a draftsman. So somebody who draws plans or designs for certain things. And I got a job with Rapid Metal Developments back in those days, and as a trainee draftsman. Mm-hmm. And that was because my uncle, Dad's twin brother, was a draftsman at Holden's.
Okay.
And I liked the idea of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, I had to go to trade school, and they extended the drafting training from 2 years to 4 years, and just got too much. So Dad said to me, because I was dodging trade school, come on, you come and work with me. So I went and worked with Dad.
Right. So you're 18 now, and you're going to work with Dad. Where's footy at the moment?
I played football for my school in the B grade, and
must have been a good school.
Mate, I was really, really good. I think at that stage I got a trophy for best tackler. That was the only trophy I got, and that was the extent of my skills.
Really?
I was terrible.
So hang on a minute. You played state football for South Australia, and you were in the B grade at school, basically.
Yeah. And
so what school was that?
Glengarry High.
Oh, they were very good.
Well, we had David Holst and Kim Hodgman and some Glenelg greats that were a couple of years
But still,
ahead.
I would have thought you'd make the A grade at Glengarry High School.
Oh, not then. I was terrible. No.
Well, that's a story in itself. That is incredible. So you went from being hopeless at 18. How old were you when you made your league debut for Glenelg?
24.
Right. So you stuck it out until you were 24 to play league football, when the average age of a player debuting, I'm guessing, would be 20, 21.
I would have been one of the oldest players there.
Right.
Yeah. Wayne Carey. Peter Carey was the oldest by far, and there were probably two or three others in between, and then it was me. Yeah.
So that you must have had an incredible desire to achieve that.
When I left school, and I think when I was 17, I started playing football for Plimpton Football Club, which was a local club, and they taught me very quickly about, I was 17, I'm playing with men that are 30, in their 30s. And so that was a really fast track learning curve for me about how to defend myself and behave on a football field, how to get the ball. And I did start to, because I was a carpenter, I did start to physically grow. So I was becoming a lot stronger. And so it was a lot easier for me to get the ball and stand on my feet rather than get knocked over. And so that was a great start to my career. I tried to go out to Glenelg for 3 years and got rejected. So I gave it one last shot when I was 24 and made the side.
So what year was that?
That was 1983, I reckon.
Okay, so for those who don't know SA football, the 80s was a golden era for the Glenelg Football Club. Kernahan, McDermott, McGuinness, all those great players. You played with all of them. So you've gone from Plimpton Football Club to last-ditch effort to get to Glenelg, and somehow you've made it.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Perseverance. I tried 3 years in a row. And I think you'll find that I have my mother's stubborn streak in me, so I don't like to be told no. And I just kept training, kept trying harder and harder to get there. And at some stage, there's some stage during that time when I was trying to make it, I decided that I have to show this football club what I can do. I'm not just, I was a rover back then, so as a midfield player, 5'9.25", and about 70 kilos if I was lucky. And so I was able to run around and move quickly and get the ball and be in position. But my greatest attribute, which you'll probably know me for, is I wouldn't put up with any stuff, and I wasn't scared of anything.
Yeah. I do recall you being reasonably hard.
Yeah. So in a game against West Adelaide, I was playing in the B grade, and I was tired of playing in the B grade at the start of 1983, and Graham Campbell was our coach. So I decided that when I get the ball in front of the coach's box, I'm going to have to do something to show him I'm not just the little kid that runs around. I'm a man now, and I can stick up for myself. So there was a scrimmage, and a few players fell on the ground, and I stood up and started throwing punches. And the runner came out and dragged me off the ground straight away because I was right in front of the coach's box. And then I reckon, so get emotional now.
Why do you get emotional about it?
It took a while.
Yeah.
For me to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I did not know any of that. All I know you as the Sandful legend, frankly, who played a lot of games for South Australia. You must have played 200 games for Glenelg.
Yeah, 240.
And I think that you look at someone like you and you think, well, he must have been gifted. He must have had, great advantage naturally. But it couldn't be further from the truth in your case. And to me, it's really interesting that you sought to make an impression. You thought, I need to start a fight, basically, to make an impression on the coaches.
Yeah. And
it clearly did.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to say before I got emotional, it was the best thing that happened to me in my career.
So how long after that was it before you got picked?
Next week I played league.
Wow. And how much reserves footy did you play after that?
I played a couple of games coming back from suspension, but that was it.
So that was it. You're in the league and you proved yourself, and the rest is history. So you played in the 85 premiership team?
Yep.
86 premiership team? Is there any after that?
No.
So two premierships with all those great players, who then, most of whom went off to Victoria and became legends of the game, frankly.
Yeah.
So what lessons did you take from your football career that then you could use in your business career? And maybe I'm guessing that at some point when you're playing footy, when did Scott Salisbury Homes start? When did you decide to go into to building homes and start your own business?
So at 24, I was already, I've never been employed apart from the first few months of my working career. So I've always worked for myself. And I found, just like football, the harder I worked, the better I got. And I guess, in some ways, the harder I worked, the more money I earned as well, which was helpful. So I was working for myself, basically doing carpentry, and then towards the end of my career, which was, I was 34 when I finished. By then, probably by the time I was 30, I'd started closing in back verandas and making additions and doing that. All very small, and because I probably didn't really have the time to do it because football was taking up a lot of my time as well.
So you're a semi-professional footballer. You got paid.
Yeah, well,
not much.
Not much.
Yeah, okay. But it did take up a lot of time, which sort of made it more difficult to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the amount of money I was paid, I could earn it working in a bottle shop after hours.
Yeah, right.
Basically, so it wasn't a lot back then.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I would have played. So I just loved the game. I loved the competitive nature of it, and also the the way that you could intimidate or influence other people with your behaviour. I thought that was really fun to be around. I quite often would intimidate people at 5'9", which is silly. But some of those great characters that you played with who'd be trying to do the same to you, or some of them would just talk. Daryl Hart from North Adelaide, he'd just talk all the time. It just used to annoy me. I'd have to stand him and it would get to me. He'd be nice to me and talk to me, so it would bother me.
So what did you do?
I'd walk away from him, which wasn't.
What if you were standing him?
I was. Yeah. So so it was a bit difficult, but I just loved the game. I loved being there.
So you get to your 30s, you start doing back verandas and things like that. Was there a moment where you thought, I know what I'm going to do?
No, not really. I've never been a goal setter. I've always sort of tried the hardest I could at whatever it was I was doing, and you'd grow and you get better, and if you didn't enjoy it, you could just stop. So that was how I managed it with my football career, and then with work. Dad taught me a lesson early in the early days when I was 17. He said, "Scott, just do it right the first time, because all tradies cheat a bit and try and do it quicker." I don't know why. I was on an hourly rate, so it didn't matter how long it took. And he drilled that into me.
Yep.
And so therefore, every time I went to do some work, or I gave somebody a quote to do some work, I would quote it as if I was going to do a really good job.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to cheat.
Yeah.
And then I would produce that, and I'd get referred for some more work. And that might be as simple as doing somebody's decking back in those days. And then I'd get more work, and I'd get more work. And, it's just word of mouth. And
so just let me just check on this. Do it right the first time. You interpreted that as being do a great job.
Yes.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
And so just let me skip way forward. How many people does Scott Salisbury Homes employ? How many homes do you build a year? And if you wouldn't mind telling me, how much do you turn over?
So we've probably got about, I should know exactly, shouldn't I? Around 55 staff.
Yeah.
Might be a bit around that.
Yeah.
Could be 58.
Yeah.
We are probably building at the moment around, under construction at the moment, I'd have over 200 homes being built.
Yep.
A lot of that is smaller homes, that government housing and things like that, townhouses for developers, and which most people probably wouldn't be aware of, but that's one side of our business that's been doing really well. And our turnover be around about 65 million.
Okay. So you've now got a substantial business. How important was your father's advice and doing a great job in getting to that point? Because as I understand it, you've got a particular niche in the housing market. How important was that advice to deciding on that niche?
Well, just wouldn't have got there. And I see so many builders try and fail, so many go under, and it's a pretty simple philosophy to have. It's just do it right, be honest, do a good job.
So tell us about the niche that you've tried to carve out in Adelaide.
Well, I actually didn't try to get there. We just grew into it, and it was because I could be flexible, and I built so many different things, and I'd worked on so many different things as a carpenter. You know, I built pole frame homes and mud brick homes, and I knew so much about techniques and how things could be built. So when it came to building architectural homes, I had a really good understanding of how to build it. So
you call it architectural home. I call it really nice house.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to call it architectural homes because that is owned by that word.
Yeah,
is owned by the architect.
But you're at the high end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of builders around town that build a lot more than 200 homes a year.
Yep.
But they're at a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They build 200 of the same. Yeah.
Or 800 of the same.
Yeah.
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 Probably more like 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've just been flexible with it. We are trying to tighten that up now for the townhouse projects that we do. But we've still got the Scott Salisbury Homes luxury model that we display. We've got, and you know we'll pretty much build anything.
But you do it at the high end.
It'll cost more because we make sure it gets built correctly.
Yeah.
So we're not in the game of the larger builders in town give you a price for a certain construction, which may not be entirely what you need to be built. They might leave things out in that price that should be in there, but you don't know.
So Scott Salisbury's dad basically came up with a philosophy which your business has been built around, rather than Scott Salisbury saying, this is what I want my business to be.
Well, pretty much Dad drove me into that that culture that's what I did as a carpenter. So I just took that further and applied the same philosophy.
So you obviously built the first home that Scott Salisbury Homes built. Is that right? Or you were a fairly important role in that? You might not have laid all the brick yourself, but...
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have. The first home I built was in Roslyn Park, Primrose Terrace, Roslyn Park.
Oh, well.
And I wouldn't have worked on it at all.
Really?
Yep.
So what were you doing?
I was paying the bills and using my 1-ton mobile phone called a Motorola. Yeah, so I was just really organising all the other things that I had on, so I didn't have time to do the work myself.
So how does a business owner instill a philosophy of quality across 55 people when you're not doing it yourself?
It's very difficult. So there's just a lot of it's constantly worked on.
Well, you've obviously been able to do it.
Yeah, and I don't have to apply that to to everybody all the time, because there's a certain amount of people who have been with us for years that know it and run with it, and then they train the new staff and try to pass that philosophy on. And some of it's not hard to pass on, because it's just really changing your specification so that you've included everything that's needed.
But you've been able to instill in the culture of Scott Salisbury Homes a certain quality element which everyone follows. Do you think being a hard unit footballer had anything to do with that?
Yes. It is funny being a business owner, and I treat everybody like they're all my friends at work. But if we go out somewhere for a meal, everyone waits for me to sit down first.
Why do they
sort
do
of. Well, I figure they don't want to sit next to me.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand.
No, well, I just feel like, whilst I just think I'm probably just intimidate, which...
But you're not trying to.
No.
You're trying to be their friend.
James, I reckon it's in my personality anyway.
Yeah,
I think I get it from my mother.
Yeah, right.
So my mother's like that. My father is a very happy, easygoing guy.
Yeah.
So
can I just ask you a sort of topical question for Australia? Sydney and Melbourne housing crisis, you hear it all the time. You build residential houses. You are the supposed solution to the housing crisis in this country, Melbourne, Sydney more so, probably less so Adelaide, because we have a bit of an exodus of people as well as new ones coming in. What are your thoughts on how that problem gets fixed? How does the country build more homes?
It has to get more immigrants that are tradespeople, and that's the only way it can be done. We don't have enough tradespeople in Australia to build what the government think that they can build.
So they're aiming to build 1.2 million homes in a certain amount of time, and they're way behind. So they're never going to get there.
Never going to get there, no. Unless they have immigration of tradies.
Yeah.
Or they have to stop large infrastructure projects that take the trades away.
Okay, right.
So at the moment, they're doing everything. They've got massive infrastructure projects, trying to build housing for everybody. I also think that that there's a housing shortage that everyone says, but so I sort of would say, well, where are they living now then? And clearly they're living somewhere, and they're probably, I'm not talking about the homeless people. It's probably more about, kids moving out or family members having to stay with their family in the family home or whatever. They are living somewhere. So if the financial crisis it gets worse, then I think they'll stay at home, and the need for housing will perhaps drop a bit, and that's probably how we'll get through it.
Yeah, as you say, there's hopefully there's not too many people on the streets.
Yeah.
It's just more people living in existing homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An example of what has happened, if you went to one of the large new subdivisions 6 months ago or a year ago, you would have seen bricks loaded up around every house, wall frames up and bricks loaded around every house. Like there would have been 200 or 300 out at Riverlea where this happened, because there's no bricklayers. So they've sold them, and the builders have done their work, but there's just not enough tradesmen around to do the work. So I think that's a good example of it. And we're trying our hardest to build what we can for the government at the moment.
But yeah, it's it's a fix that takes years and years in the making, doesn't it? Because you've got to get kids in school interested in doing trades.
Yeah.
At the moment, there's this bias towards everyone going to university. So you've got to get more kids into trades, and that's going to take years and years and indeed a culture change at school level.
I think so. And they don't really promote it. Like a tradesman, the top trade, a carpenter would be on $150,000 a year now. And when they're working for themselves, they'll get a lot more advantages in tax and things like that. So if you're on 150 working for the government, you're going to be worse off. Yeah. And, I'm not sure what a general practitioner earns in a year, but 150 is a pretty good wage. And I think, if they started to, promote that to the kids and the parents, that this is a good business to be in. It's going to stay in Australia because you can't import it.
No.
So
can't have an app for carpentry.
No. So I think and just being out there outside and enjoying it and being your own boss. I've loved it.
So tell me, you've created this fantastic business. You've employed lots of people. Were there ever? I mean, you've had a lot of challenges. We've been through those. Were there ever times when you're in business where you thought this is too hard or this is a mistake?
Lots of times I've thought it's too hard. And lots of times I've made mistakes. They more or less end up being a financial loss rather than anything else. But I've employed a number of people that I shouldn't have employed. Running a business and having that many people, there's a large opportunity for things to go missing in your business. So that's happened to me numerous times, which is a bit upsetting.
How do you fix those problems?
Can't answer that. So I think you've just got to be more diligent with it and look into your business more and have either managers that you can trust to do that.
But so what you're saying is making mistakes is inevitable.
Yeah.
You can lose money, but you can make it back up again. It just slows you down.
That's right. Yeah. It just stops you from getting better. Because I'm driven to succeed, and the money side of things, I've never really looked at it. I could never tell anybody how much money I had in the bank. I just didn't look. I wasn't really interested. I was more interested in succeeding. I'd look at every job and make sure that it was working out financially, and we'd watch all the invoices and make sure that we paid what we were meant to pay, and when I was happy that was all working all right, I was happy because I've figured I'm doing okay. If it's if the old saying, I guess, you look after the pennies, then that'll take care of the pounds.
So you're not driven by money. You make sure that you just don't lose money on jobs. What does drive you?
Things change a bit. Initially, it was the handing over keys to people that we've just built a house for. So I'd get to do that in the start, and that's a very satisfying thing to do, because to our clients that I give the keys to, that's the best thing that's happened in their life, and it's going to change their life, and they're moving into their new house. So that was really satisfying. I think having the people around me happy and work running really smoothly and as good as I can get it to run is the other thing that satisfies me and drives me to go there and check everything. And, I think that my managers and that would, probably get annoyed with me because I'm asking them same questions all the time about, is that going all right? And are you doing that? And, I think just checking up on those things.
Basic stuff over and over.
And look, James, we've won more awards than any other builder in the state. I think we've won another national award this year. So those things as well, they don't just come around. People might think they're just awards like a gold label.
Well, there's so many useless awards these days.
Yeah,
it's hard to
that's
know
right.
Which ones are valuable.
It's like a gold label on a wine bottle.
Yeah.
But I think we're at 120 in our career, 12 national awards, and they don't give those out to just any house. It's got to be one that's built properly. So that's really satisfying.
So, Scott, if you were 35 again and you could give yourself some advice at that age, what would it be? What would you do more of, less of, differently to get you into a better position now? Yeah,
well, that's a hard question, James. I'm pretty happy with where I am. So it's a bit like asking me if I'd do anything different in footy. And the answer would probably be no. I guess I'd like to do better from the mistakes I've made. So employ better people and have a bit more discipline around the business so that not only you wouldn't get taken advantage of, but the opportunity wouldn't be there for people to even think about it. I like the idea of building 800 homes that are the same.
Bit easier.
Yeah. So and that might be because I'm getting older. but
that wasn't your father's advice. That wasn't your style.
Oh no, it wouldn't have mattered. I still had to build them correctly and build them right.
So did you ever consider that?
No, I never even looked at it. Never even looked at the model of it. No, you could see it around me all the time. As you're doing business, you watch your competitors and you wonder how they work. And it just didn't gel. And the satisfaction of doing that, you'd probably get it once a year, like at the end of the year, you've done 800, yep, great. But for me, it was more like, well, I'd have 20 or 30 of those during the year. And then we'd win awards on top of that. So it was really pleasing.
It actually sounds like it's almost helpful to not worry about how much money you're making. Focus on the other stuff and the money will look after itself almost.
I reckon that's been my philosophy and what I find with other builders, particularly the ones that go bankrupt. I don't know how they do that because it's not rocket science what we do.
Everyone who's good at something says that,
Yeah, well, but you add up how much you've got to spend to build it, and you should watch that and make sure that that happens on every job. And clearly these people don't do that.
They probably haven't been quite as good at getting a culture going through their business either, a culture of consistency that you have.
And we pay over the odds for our tradesmen and things like that. So we expect more from them. They deliver that, and they're happy, we're happy. But I think that's part of it, and to make sure that you get it done right the first time. It comes at a cost, and fortunately our customers are happy to pay that extra cost.
Scott, it's a magnificent story, frankly.
Thank you.
You are a name in Adelaide that everyone knows for lots of reasons. Nothing came easy. You're authentic and you worked your backside off to get where you are. You've employed a lot of people. You've given a lot of people the keys to their first home. So I think you should be really proud. And I think that South Australians who know you are very proud. And thanks very much for joining us on Owners Insights.
Well, thanks for those kind words, James. And it's been a great journey for me. It's not over yet, but I think fishing is probably my next major goal.
Didn't even get to that. Yeah, we forgot about the boats. We were too busy talking about footy and building. Anyway, thanks for coming. It's been terrific talking to you.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.